Hello and welcome to News at 10 on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor with you. Well, Sushma Swaraj's befitting reply to Pakistan at the United Nations General Assembly is our top focus. The External Affairs Minister told Pakistan that Kashmir will always remain with India. We'll get you all the details on that big story. In the top international news, US presidential candidates Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump clashed over various issues like terrorism, jobs and race in a feisty first of the three television debates. All the updates on that as well. Let us begin with the other top stories in the headlines. India's strong response to Pakistan at the UN General Assembly. External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj asks Islamabad to stop dreaming of separating Kashmir from India. Says terrorism a biggest violation of human rights. Prime Minister Modi reviews Indus Water Treaty at a high-level meet. Says blood and water cannot flow together. Sent to set up task force to exploit full potential of river as per treaty. The Vice President stresses on need for solid system on exchange of information to tackle terror networks. Says the need for joint fight between India and Africa for adequate representation in decision-making mechanism of United Nations. Sparks fly in a Clinton-Trump duel at the first US presidential debate. Debate divided into three 30-minute segments. Topics included the direction of America, achieving prosperity and securing America. And end to a half-century conflict as Colombian government and leftist FARC rebels ink historic peace deal. FARC leader Timochenko apologizes to victims of war. On a top story this morning, India begins a campaign to isolate Pakistan at the United Nations. On Monday, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj told the 193-member General Assembly it was time to identify nations who nurture, peddle and export terrorism and isolate them if they do not join the global fight. Also raising the issue of human rights violations in Balochistan, Sushma Swaraj countered Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's statements on Kashmir and said that terrorism is the biggest violation of human rights.
जम्मू कश्मीर भारत का अभिन्न हिस्सा है और अभिन्न हिस्सा रहेगा.
External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj sharp, swift and unequivocal in her takedown of Pakistan in her speech at the United Nations General Assembly on Monday. Countering Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, who had accused India of human rights violations while speaking at the UN last week, Swaraj not only turned the tables on Islamabad but also articulated India's stand very clear vis-a-vis Jammu and Kashmir.
अगर पाकिस्तान ये समझता है कि इस तरह की हरकतें करके या इस तरह के भड़काऊ बयान देकर वो भारत का कोई हिस्सा हमसे छीन सकता है, तो मैं पूरी दृढ़ता और स्पष्टता के साथ यहाँ ये कह देना चाहती हूँ कि आपका ये मंसूबा कभी कामयाब नहीं होगा.
While drawing the world's attention to India's long struggle with cross-border terrorism, Sushma Swaraj also strategically emphasized India's continuing willingness to engage its neighbor in dialogue. She said, while Modi government has sought to open a new chapter. Well, let's listen to some more reactions on Sushma Swaraj's speech at the UNGA.
Modi government and Sushma ji in her address failed to call upon United Nations to impose comprehensive diplomatic and economic sanctions against them. Modi government even failed to list the terrorist organizations and terrorists which operate from Pakistan.
एक तो हम पाकिस्तान का नाम लेने से बहुत कतराते हैं. आज भी नाम नहीं लिया गया. जिस तरह से नवाज शरीफ जैसे लोग हैं, उससे पहले जनरल मुशर्रफ भी था, ये हिंदुस्तान का नाम लेके हमको चैलेंज देते हैं. कश्मीर का इशू हो और कोई विषय हो, हम लोग आज भी भाषण से उनको इशारा देते हैं. सिर्फ
यहाँ के लीडर सिवाय झूठ बोलने के और कोई काम नहीं करते. यहाँ तक कि अपनी जनता को भी बेवकूफ बना रहे हैं. अभी जो इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर चाइना बना रहा था पाकिस्तान के बीच में, तो उसके ऊपर भी चाइना अभी सोच विचार कर रहा है. तो और बलूचिस्तान पीओके सब जगह पाकिस्तान का जो झूठ है वो पूरी पोल खुल चुकी है.
She spoke was effective in a way, but the allegation of human rights violation in Kashmir went unanswered. I would have expected her to apprise the world community about this new coalition of terrorism that is developed, comprising Wahhabis, Pakistan state, and terrorists led by Hafiz Saeed, the UN proclaimed terrorist offender.
And amid growing calls to repeal the Indus Water Treaty between India and Pakistan, Prime Minister Narendra Modi shared a meeting with NSA Ajit Doval and Foreign Secretary S. Jaishankar on Monday. Senior officials of the PMO were also present at the meeting, in which the Prime Minister has said that blood and water cannot flow together.
The 56-year-old Indus Waters Treaty that survived 3 major wars and repeated challenges to the India-Pakistan relations is once again back in focus. Heightened tensions between the neighbours after the Uri attack has triggered demands in India to rethink the water sharing agreement. On Monday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi met senior officials to discuss the legal, political and diplomatic options on nullifying the treaty. The meeting was attended by National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, Foreign Secretary S. Jaishankar and senior PMO officials. At the closed-door meeting, Prime Minister is learned to have expressed serious concern over the increasing attacks on India by groups backed by the Pakistan government, asserting that blood and water can't flow together. Reports also coming in say that the government will soon set up an interministerial task force to exploit the full potential of the rivers Indus, Chenab and Jhelum as per the treaty. All India Radio is quoting sources as saying that during the meeting it was decided to expedite construction on Pakal Dul, Sawalkot and Bursa dams on Chenab River. India is also planning to review construction on Tulbul navigation project in the Kashmir Valley, on which work was unilaterally suspended by India in 1987. The decision to examine the Indus Treaty comes just days after MES spokesperson Vikas Swarup told the media that for any such treaty to work, mutual trust and goodwill are essential.
The preamble of the treaty itself says it's based on goodwill. So for such a treaty to work, it is important that there must be mutual trust and mutual cooperation between both the sides. It cannot be a one-sided affair.
Experts are, however, divided over the merits of renegotiating the international water sharing agreement.
Since it's an international treaty to which we have signed, and we are a responsible country, and we can't behave irresponsibly at the international level, especially as we have aspirations to be considered a global player. But the fact also is that there are provisions in the treaty which allow us to use those provisions in a way that increases pressure on Pakistan legitimately and legally.
We have already been permitted about 2 million acre-feet of storage in Chenab and Jhelum Valley by way of carrying out the irrigation, local irrigation in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. And we haven't yet fully utilized this quota. And we are still planning or trying to investigate the projects which can really facilitate this much amount of storage. We should actually try to expedite this. This will not even require abrogation of the treaty, but it will definitely send a message that we are very serious about utilizing our share of water.
All the political parties want the government to send out a strong diplomatic message to Pakistan.
छेद 62 के अंदर वियना कन्वेंशन में इस प्रकार की ट्रीटी को रद्द करने की पूरा अधिकार क्षेत्र है. किसी भी करारनामे के जिस पे हस्ताक्षर किया है जिसने, साथ साथ अगर उस करारनामे के अंतर्गत भी काम किया जाए तो भी ऐसी कई विकल्प हैं. उदाहरण के तौर पे और कई अलग-अलग स्थित जगहों पे डैम्स बनाना.
Signed in 1960 by then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and Pakistani President Ayub Khan, the treaty was brokered by the World Bank. It's said to be more liberal to Pakistan, allocating 80% of the water from 6 rivers, the Bias, Ravi, Satluj, Indus, Chenab and Jhelum, to the country. A cut-off in water supply by India is expected to cause major crisis in Pakistan as a majority of its areas are dependent on this water. With inputs from Akhilesh Suman, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Now, the Congress has demanded that a special session of Parliament be convened to declare Pakistan a terrorist state in the wake of the Uri terror attack. The party has alleged that the Narendra Modi government has responded only with gimmicks and rhetoric since the attack took place and favoured withdrawal of the most favoured nation status to Pakistan and the imposition of economic sanctions on it. Now, noting that the party also believed in a strategic restraint, party spokesperson Abhishek Manu Singhvi said that such restraint in the face of such a provocation should not mean the absence of a strategic response. The party also said that political and administrative accountability of the highest office has to be fixed in the context of those responsible for security.
We demand that a special 1-2-day session of Parliament be called to discuss the security situation and more particularly to declare Pakistan a terrorist state. Third, we demand near absolute economic sanctions against Pakistan. Near absolute economic sanctions against Pakistan. We ask, why is there delay in considering and finalizing the asylum request of the Baluch leader Bukti? We demand the considerable scaling down of the Pakistan High Commission in Delhi and vice versa, perhaps the scaling down of our mission there. We demand vehement lobbying across the world with every major power which remotely has a link with, which provides aid or has economic cooperation with Pakistan.
On to some other news now. Well, Vice President Hamid Ansari is in Nigeria as part of his 5-day two-nation tour. The visit is aimed at strengthening India's bilateral engagements with the two West African nations, Nigeria and Mali. The visit is also likely to garner support for India's push for a global convention against terrorism at the United Nations. Vice President Hamid Ansari on Monday arrived in Nigerian capital on the first leg of his 5-day tour. He was received at the Abuja International Airport by his Nigerian counterpart, Yemi Osinbajo. During the first day of his 5-day tour, the Vice President inaugurated the High Commission of India Chancery Complex and interacted with the members of the Indian community.
There is a convergence of thinking on global matters, which in the world of tomorrow is going to be extremely important. Both of us play an important role on the world stage. We contribute to the maintenance of peace in different parts of the world.
Earlier, while addressing the media on board Air India's special flight, Vice President mentioned that India had a long association with the African continent, starting from the days of decolonization, and that there is a natural sympathy and friendship which India receives in African nations. Now, speaking on India's ties with Nigeria, the Vice President said that the country was the largest in Africa in terms of population and that it carried significant weight in the region and internationally. Its own objectives for the reform of the United Nations were not dissimilar to India's goals.
As and when UN reforms take place, Nigeria will occupy an important place. It has the same kind of expectations from UN as we have.
Focusing on the issue of terrorism, the Vice President said that it had become a global menace, one that was disturbing social peace and impacting development.
As far as counter-terrorism is concerned, the most important thing is exchange of information, because terrorist networks are becoming global networks. Therefore, we must have a system, and that system has now been put in place with most countries.
Later today, the Vice President will hold talks with Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari, Vice President Osinbajo, President of the Senate, Speaker of the House of Representatives, and deliver an address at the National Defence College of Nigeria. He will also meet the Governor of Lagos and deliver an address at the Joint Business Forum at the University of Lagos. This is Amrita Rai and Anu Diwan's report for Rajya Sabha TV. Well, we'll take a very short break here. We'll be back with more news. Stay with us.
The sacred relics of Buddha were unearthed in Piprava in Uttar Pradesh. Buddhist monks from all over the world visit the National Museum to pay their respects. These charred bone fragments of Buddha are housed in the gold canopy gifted by the royal family of Thailand.
Welcome back. News from down south. Well, the Supreme Court is likely to take up pleas of Tamil Nadu and Karnataka with the release of Kaveri River water today. On Monday, Karnataka moved the court seeking modification of its order to release 6,000 cusecs of water per day to Tamil Nadu, saying its reservoir did not have sufficient water. Tamil Nadu also moved a plea alleging its neighbours should not be heard till it complied with the directives of the Supreme Court and the Kaveri Water Disputes Tribunal. On 20th of September, the Apex Court had directed Karnataka to release 6,000 cusecs of water per day to Tamil Nadu till 27th of September, doubling the quantum fixed by the Supervisory Committee. Karnataka convened a special session of the Assembly and passed a resolution deferring the release of water. The state said that the Apex Court order was unimplementable.
Our intention is not to release water. But you don't have the water. We have the minimum water for the drinking water purpose. And Tamil Nadu is now having a sufficient water for their crops. And as the position improves, we can always give the water. At this juncture, it is very difficult.
If today the direction of the Supreme Court is being implemented, then there will be a huge scarcity of the drinking water. So I think the Honorable Supreme Court will take a lenient view and take into consideration the ground realities, and hope that the Government of India will also intervene and apprise the Honorable Supreme Court. And at the same time, we appeal to the neighboring state of Tamil Nadu also, that they should also take a human view.
Meanwhile, the flood situation in Telangana in Karnataka is grim. Now in Telangana, a flood alert has been sounded as water level is rising in the river Godavari due to huge inflow of water following heavy rainfall. Alerts have been sounded for Karimnagar, Warangal and Khammam districts. Overall, 11 people have died in rain-related incidents in Telangana. Over 1,000 people from 6 villages in Karimnagar district alone have been evacuated due to flooding. Now, Chief Minister K. Chandrasekhar Rao held a review meeting with officials after conducting an aerial survey of the Mid-Manner Dam and rain-affected areas, and has directed officials to be prepared for any eventuality. While in Karnataka, 9 people have died so far, normal life in Gulbarga district has been severely affected. Now, NDRF teams have been deployed at several places to carry out flood rescue operation. Chief Minister Siddaramaiah will visit the flood-affected areas in Bidar and Kalburgi districts today, along with the senior officials and ministerial colleagues, to take stock of the situation caused by the heavy rains. The Met Department has predicted no let-up in rains in the next 48 hours as well. On to some other news. Well, the Income Tax Department has come out with the draft rules relating to registration, invoice and payment, which will be finalized by the GST Council on Friday. The move is aimed at meeting the April 2017 GST rollout deadline. The draft rules, on which the Central Board of Excise and Customs has invited comments by Wednesday, comes less than a week after the first meeting of the GST Council. The draft rules provide for online registration by residents within 3 days of submission of application. The non-residents who will come under the purview of GST will be required to electronically submit the application for registration at least 5 days prior to the commencement of business and deposit it full tax liability in advance. The government aims to implement the new indirect tax regime, goods and services tax, from 1st of April next year. And to that effect, the GST Council will hold its second meeting on 30th of September. The meeting would also finalize the rules for GST. Let's get to some international news. Well, Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton and her Republican counterpart Donald Trump today sparred over economy and creating new jobs in their first face-off in a nationally televised presidential debate ahead of the US polls. Now, Trump claimed that the US is being used as a piggy bank to rebuild China. Clinton, on the first woman to appear on the stage of the presidential debate, disagreed. Now, opinion polls show that the two candidates are in a very tight race. Well, the debate was divided into 3 30-minute segments with the topics including direction of America, achieving prosperity and securing America. Both Trump and Clinton traded accusations over the economy. Well, Trump said that the North American Free Trade Agreement is defective and that Clinton should have been addressing it for years. To this, Clinton came on the counterattack and claimed that Trump benefited from the 2006 recession. The attacks also turned personal as Trump accused his rival Clinton of not having the right temperament to be the president. Meanwhile, Clinton pointed out that Trump refuses to release his tax returns.
The question in this election is really what kind of country we want to be and what kind of future we'll build.
But in all fairness to Secretary Clinton, when she started talking about this, it was really very recently. She's been doing this for 30 years. And why hasn't she made the agreements better? The NAFTA agreement is defective just because of the tax and many other reasons, but just because of the fact.
Let me interrupt just a moment.
Secretary Clinton and others, politicians, should have been doing this for years, not right now because of the fact that we've created a movement. They should have been doing this for years. What's happened to our jobs and our country and our economy generally is, look, we owe $20 trillion. We cannot do it any longer.
The kind of plan that Donald has put forth would be trickle-down economics all over again. In fact, it would be the most extreme version, the biggest tax cuts for the top % of the people in this country than we've ever had. I call it trumped-up trickle-down because that's exactly what it would be. That is not how we grow the economy.
And Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos and Marxist rebel leader Timochenko used a pen made from a bullet to sign an accord ending a half-a-century war that killed 250,000 people. After 4 years of peace talks in Cuba, Santos and Timochenko shook hands on Colombian soil for the first time in front of hundreds of dignitaries. Latin American leaders like Cuba's Raul Castro and Mexico's Enrique Nieto looked on alongside UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and US Vice President John Kerry. After the signing of the deal, President Santos handed Timochenko a pin of a white dove in a symbolic peace gesture. The end of Latin America's longest-running war will turn the FARC guerrillas into a political party fighting at the ballot box instead of the battlefield that they have occupied since 1964. Colombians will now vote on 2nd of October to whether ratify the agreement, but polls show it should pass easily.
Señor Rodrigo Londoño y miembros de las FARC, hoy, cuando emprenden su camino de regreso a la sociedad, cuando comienzan su tránsito a convertirse en un movimiento político sin armas, siguiendo las reglas de justicia, verdad y reparación contenidas en el acuerdo. Como jefe de Estado de la patria que todos amamos, les doy la bienvenida a la democracia.
La 10ª Conferencia Nacional de Guerrilleros de las FARC-EP ha refrendado de manera unánime los acuerdos de La Habana y ha mandatado la creación del nuevo partido o movimiento político, lo cual configura el paso definitivo de la forma de lucha clandestina y alzamiento armado a la forma de lucha abierta y legal hacia la expansión de la democracia. Que nadie dude que vamos hacia la política sin armas. Preparémonos todos para desarmar las mentes y los corazones.
Some more international news now. Here is the World Wrap. US President Barack Obama has expressed a deep concern about the situation in rebel-held parts of Aleppo amid an assault by Syrian government forces. Medics in the city are struggling to cope with a huge number of casualties caused by the most sustained and intense aerial bombardment in years. Supplies of medicine and blood are running low as a 3-week siege by the army begins to have an impact. Nine people were injured on Monday when a man armed with several weapons opened fire on vehicles in southwest Houston, the largest city in the U.S. state of Texas. The gunman was later shot dead by the police. Police says that he was a disgruntled lawyer. There is no indication that anyone else was involved in planning or carrying out the attack. The Islamic State group could use mustard gas against an Iraqi offensive to retake Mosul, Iraq's second largest city. The US Defense Department has warned. It said that the jihadists had already used mustard gas at least a couple of times earlier as well. Iraqi security forces backed by US-led coalition air power are in the final weeks of preparing operations ahead of an assault to recapture Mosul, which is the Islamic State group's had seized in 2014. Well, that's it from me and my team in this edition of news. Thanks so much for watching.